you are going through divorce and you have children who are used to go to private school, swim classes, singing classes, all kinds of classes, is the other parent required to pay half or 100% of these extracurricular activities or private school? The answer is no. If the divorce is happening in the middle of the school year, then most likely the judge will order that it's in the best interest of the child or children to keep that year. But going forward, the court cannot force the other parent to pay for half of the private school tuitions or any extracurricular activities. So then the question becomes, what about need-based activities? If the child has some sort of disability and required to go to speech classes or other medically necessary activities, that is already the area where the court probably is going to agree, and it will become mandatory add-on expense. There are 3 types of mandatory add-on expense. Number 1, childcare. Childcare, and let me back off a little bit to say what mandatory means. Mandatory, it means by law. It means that it's not optional. It means the other parent is required by law to pay 50% of these expenses. So back to childcare. Childcare related expenses are typically for the parent who is custodial parent during custodial time, needs to either look for a job or keep a job, meaning go to work. That is divided 50-50. Same for the other parent, so they can split it. Or say if you have 50% our child, then you pay for your nanny and I'll pay for mine. That's possible too. Second is out-of-pocket medical, such as braces, optical, dental, everything that insurance doesn't cover, that the parent needs to pay 50%. There are exceptions to 50%, and they're rare but exist if the other parent who is required to pay or the parent who's paying for it is not able to afford it. For example, they don't work. Then the court could consider hardship and create a modified order saying that it's proportionately to income. I haven't seen it very often. In a decade of doing this, typically it's 50-50. And the third mandatory add-on expense is visitation cost. For example, if 2 parents live far apart and one parent has to fly and pay for the ticket for the child, that's called visitation cost. So that cost needs to be split 50-50. In other words, except for these mandatory expenses, typically parents agree to split 50-50 because that's what they want to be the best for the children, but not always possible to keep up the lifestyle they used to have in one household with 2 salaries. Now they have to pay for 2 different households, potentially having other children in another marriage, have higher expenses but not able to afford private school, and divorce is also expensive, which I will talk in my next video. So consider this. If you want to put your kids through the private school, I would even consider to pay 5 years in advance if possible, so that if divorce is an option in the future, that this is no longer going to be an issue as an option. If that's not possible, then I would move to the area where I know if, God forbid, divorce happens, the public school is really, really good quality. And we know that it's based on lottery system, for example, in San Francisco. And even though living in the same neighborhood doesn't mean getting the school in the same neighborhood, so it becomes a big problem picking the right school. And then within that issue, if the other parent is not agreeing even to a public school of a certain type, then that's what would require court's order. And if that's an issue, I would suggest to file a year in advance of the application process, because I had seen cases when this type of a request is filed, the court can give a hearing 4 months in advance, 4, 5, 6 months in advance in some counties. And then the other parent says, well, I have all these other schools, and then the court might order custody evaluator or long cause hearing, and then it kicks out to the next year, and then the application process begins, and the decision hasn't been made, and the child will remain in the same school that the parent who applied for a new school doesn't like. So it has to be really, really planned ahead to ensure that your child is in best school possible. If you have any questions, link them down in the comment section below. Otherwise, I will see you in my next consultation. Bye!